Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Tuesday's Postgraduate Support Group meeting as part of the Postgraduate Academy at UKZN. I'm Leni Liebenberg, and I am very happy to be hosting you today. As a reminder, this is our last session of our Postgraduate Support Group meeting for this semester. Next semester starts in at the end of July and beginning of August. And we'll pick up with these sessions again. I know you're going to miss us, but we're ending off on a really high note. So just to mention for our newcomers, this is a very casual, very informal session. It's also very interactive. So please feel free to use your reaction icons to share your thoughts. Use the chat box if you'd like to ask a question or just express yourself. Raise your hand if you'd like to, if you want to engage. That's it. That's my housekeeping rules. So today we'll be discussing all things time management, so how to manage your time well enough to produce and to meet your goals and still lead a happy, well-rounded life. I mean, that's the goal, right? And today I've nominated a very special speaker, a speaker so very well qualified to lead this discussion. Don't shake your head at me. So Prof. Desh Archery is a senior scientist at CAPRISA. She's an honorary associate professor at UKZN. And Desh has been my colleague for many, many years, and she seems to be doing 10 million things all the time and doing them well, so focused and with a smile on her face, whether it's for work, whether it's for family, whether it's for lab stuff. I mean, she's moving, she's prepared, and she's got the time to be able to manage these things. So this is my perception of Prof. Archery. She's a super focused, super planner, and someone who always seems to be getting things done. So I thought it would be useful to grab hold of her, rather schedule some time in her day for her to share her wisdom with us in this forum. So welcome, Prof. Archery. Thank you so much for joining this Tuesday Postgraduate Support Group meeting. You'll find, I'm sure, that we are a wonderful bunch of curious professionals, a very, very engaging group of people, and we'll be trying to be as interactive as possible within the chat box, or raising our hands, or using our reaction icons. I'm going to be listening here, scribbling furiously, making sure that I get the most out of this meeting, because goodness knows I need some time management advice. Thank you again for joining us, and I'm going to hand over to you.
So good afternoon, everyone. You know, I'm trying to make this as easy and as fun as possible so that time management isn't this big gray cloud hanging over you. Lenine is very kind in her introduction and her perception of me. I can tell you most of the time I feel like I'm drowning rather than swimming, but it's okay. We allow ourselves to sink sometimes in order to regain our balance and start swimming again. And this is what the session is all about. Sometimes you have to hit the lows in order to gain the highs. So I'm just going to be telling you about time management, hopefully in a fun way. And please feel free at any time to stop me and to ask me from my very, biased view of how I do things. It may not necessarily be the best way, but it does work for me on some level or the other. So how do we make something? We all got the same 24 hours in the day. So how do we make the most of the time that we have? And how do we make it work for us so that it's beneficial not only to achieving your goals, but also for satisfying others around you? So happiness is a twofold thing. It's a personal thing that you get satisfaction from, but it's also your interactions with other people. And a lot of the time in science and research, as Lenine would tell you, it goes very much both ways. You have to be in a team and you have to collaborate, but in order to be effective, you have to make sure that you work with each other toward that goal. And if you're not effective, and if you don't manage your tasks within a certain time frame, then people will start falling off and going to other sources for help. So how do we prevent that from happening? Oh dear. Okay. So one of the things that you can't do is get a longer watch or a watch that gives you more time. There's no such thing. And obviously, is this tile blocking your view, Lenine?
Nope, nope, I can see it.
Okay. And the other thing is removing all your calendars and your clocks around you is not going to make anything better. So you're going to have to deal with the monster that it is. And one of the things that you have to do is basically manage your time better. So what will we cover? We'll cover what time management is. We'll also be covering stuff within you. How are you going to detect things about you that are habits and you don't actually see them as something negative, but they're eating into your time that you could be productive on? Procrastination and strategies to prevent it. I can tell you all of us are procrastinators, but it depends on the type of procrastinator that you are. If you're the procrastinator that lives in La La Land and thinks that things are going to get done at the last minute without a deadline, that's a different type of procrastinator. But if you are a procrastinator that's aware of the deadline and you start kicking in at some stage, that's a procrastinator that has some rational thought. And we'll have a fun video at the end of this to explain to you the difference between the two. Planning your time. I think you have to, the more tasks you have and the more goals you have to accomplish, it kind of contracts your time, but it's counterintuitive. You're actually more productive and more likely to be within time frame if you have more tasks. And I don't know if you find that, Lenine, that if you have your task list filled, you prioritize and you triage according to the priority. So we're going to go through that on goal setting and to-do lists. Very important. The next slide. So how do you need to manage your time? It should be common sense, right? But if you've got inherent bad habits about, my friend is here. I haven't seen her for the past 24 hours. Let's catch up. But you have something that is a deadline in the next 4 hours. You are actually consciously stopping yourself from achieving that goal. Maybe because your task is too difficult, and we're going to go through that. Everything is common sense. So you shouldn't feel like if you're not going to be talking to somebody, that you're doing them a disadvantage. Who knows? They've got other things to do. They may not want to even talk to you. So it works both ways, right? So time management is using the time available to you effectively to get the task done. So don't worry about things that you're going to do in the future. Don't worry about the task. The thing is, you just got to have to say to yourself, what do I need to do? Start writing it down on a piece of paper, because consciously in your mind, the action of writing something down actually gets you ready for action. So there's one thing that I read in a very nice self-help thing, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they say that you need to write things down. First, it's created in your mind, and then you put it down onto paper, you're creating it again. So things are created twice, and then you enaction it. So I think writing it down and not being able to get away from it because your brain remembers it is very important. And we're going to go through that now. So to achieve your potential, you have to analyze your time. So break up your day, okay? If you're protecting your time to go, for example, to gym, am I earning my trip to the gym? Although gym is very beneficial. So analyze your time. Keep your focus in mind. What are your goals? Set your goals, okay? So don't set so many goals in your time that it's going to be unachievable, and it's going to just make you feel more and more and more anxious. So, and that's why scheduling your time is so important. So attaching a time frame to those goals and when you're going to achieve them by, and then breaking them down into mini goals is so important. So you'll find that the techniques that I'm going to be introducing you to is very important, and I use them not all the time as effectively as I should, I must admit. Sometimes I have to remind myself, and it's only human. You like to settle back into your old habits, and that's okay, but you have to recognize it and then correct it. So all of us are creatures of habit, right? So there's 12 very common mistakes that we are all guilty of making. And number one is you're given a project, or you think of a project and then you just don't plan for it. And you think, okay, I'll do this tomorrow and I'll do that the following day, but nothing is put down on paper. And to-do lists are fantastic reminders of everything. You stick them on your computer. You'll see me with little post-its like this everywhere, all over my desk, because I put them on a reminder on my desk. I put a reminder on my phone, and I make sure that I keep in touch with what needs to be done because of urgency and importance. And I'll teach you that. You're not delegating. So say perhaps Lineen told me, oh, Desh, I think you need to go into the lab and sort out some samples first, and then you can come and do your talk. Then I'll think, no, but I have other people to sort out my samples. So Lineen's my boss, but I have a way, I have a plan B. I can ask somebody who does a similar line of work to just step in and help me so that I can carve out time for something that I'm already committed to and that I feel passionate about. Whether it's reading a paper, if you can protect your time to read a paper and say, at this moment in time, I can't do this. I'm busy reading a paper towards my thesis write-up. Is it possible for you to find somebody else, or you go and find somebody else? So have a plan B for yourself. And I think contingency planning is an important thing. So being a yes person, I can understand when you are, and I hate to say this, but when you are junior, sometimes it becomes difficult to say no because you're trying to grab at every opportunity to learn, new opportunities to train in new techniques, new opportunities to be under the mentorship of somebody. But at some stage, you're going to have to take a step back and say, is this going to benefit me anymore, or am I going to be stretched for time? Okay. So the other thing is, don't be obsessed with hours spent, doing stuff rather than the quality of work that's coming out. You need to focus, and that's where focus comes in. So take care of small stuff first. And everybody tells you that even when you're looking at an exam paper, go and do the easier stuff first. Why? Because that gets your momentum going to tackle the harder stuff. Because if you find that the easy stuff is easy to accomplish, you can tick it off. I know that. It's a confidence builder. In the same way, you're going to attack your to-do list, or you're going to attack your goal setting. Set the small goals that are highly achievable first, and see, okay, is there a time frame that I can allot to it? And can I then put on my more difficult tasks for later? Okay, so that means that you're not taking everything like an elephant all at once and trying to tackle the whole thing. You are making sure that you are doing one thing at a time, right? Skipping breaks. I cannot tell you how important Lineen sometimes is to my life, because she will forcibly come and say, let's go and have a coffee. And I am the one who at the end of 10 minutes, Lineen, will say, Lineen, I have to go back. I need to start this task. And then I'm also Lineen's reminder that she's also got a task to do. But she's fantastic that way. Lineen has the ability to take breaks, no matter how busy she is. Even if she's having a crisis, she will take a break from that crisis and recover from it, and then come and tell us the story after the fact. And then she'll take us on a break. So that's wonderful.
I feel like I need to defend myself to an extent here. I'm not a slacker. I just really do fiercely protect my breaks. My mental health comes first. And I want, I want that to happen for Desh as well.
No, and I think that's important to me. And hopefully I didn't make it sound like a slacker, but you are somebody who forces me to reckon with myself as well. That, it's okay to defocus for a bit and then you refocus. And that's what you've taught me, even our walking breaks. It's like a welcome break during the day. And sometimes I think, oh, I can't do it. I've got X, Y, and Z to do. But then I think about it. I'm going to be more productive defocusing and coming back and refocusing, right? And I think once you've made a decision about things, unless it's really bad decisions that you make, don't revisit and undermine your initial strategy. What you write down about your initial thoughts about how you break down your stuff is the right way, generally. Remember, your first thought is the right thought. It's the subsequent thought of your subconscious coming in and saying, oh, but maybe, no, this is not right. Maybe you need to revisit this. That's actually wrong. Trust your gut for many of the things that you need to accomplish. And of course, not setting goals. I think not setting goals is half your problem if you have poor time management, because if you don't set the goals, it doesn't obligate you to do things. Using technology for the sake of it. So you can have all these reminders on your phone, on your computer, but if you're not actively working towards that task and just ignoring it and hoping that something good will come of it in the end, like your 3-year PhD, I think your 3-year PhD is actually only 2 years, because your first year or your first 6 months is like this massive gray area of resolving your project, trying to figure out BREC, trying to do your application, making sure that you're registered, making sure that you've ordered your chemicals, understanding the goals of your project. And then the last 6 months of your project is basically writing up and consolidating. And basically you are registered for literally 2 years of your PhD in full-time study. So don't ever forget that. And I don't want to add more pressure to your life by telling you that, but it's something of a reality bite that we need to accept about our time doing a postgraduate degree like PhD, or doing any master's in, you have masters in medicine as well. I think that's a 1-year course. So literally the first 6 months of any graduate degree is dedicated to admin and sorting out stuff that you need to accomplish the goals for later. So you manage your time, not the results, right? So what you're doing is from 8 to 2, I'm going to be reading. But what happens after the reading? Have you converted that reading into something tangible? Is it towards your write-up? Is it towards your research for your paper? Is it for a presentation? So that's what you need to do. You have to be result-driven rather than just time-driven. Okay, doesn't mean to say I spent 20 minutes versus 2 hours on a paper, I'm any less informed about it. Okay, it's your method of doing things. So what is procrastination? It means putting off tasks that you need to have done in order to accomplish your goal. So you meet your friend, you have a 40-minute break, you haven't even earned that break. And we all are guilty of this. We all have work aversion behavior. This is typical work aversion behavior. But I think what happens is that with procrastination, you become fearful of the task that you need to attack. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that you can do in order to prevent procrastination or to handle. You need to handle procrastination. You need to acknowledge it for what it is. Say, hello, procrastination. I know who you are. I know what you want to do to me, but I'm going to handle you rather than you handling me. And the best way to do that is to carve out time and to allocate time in your calendar for everything. So there's, decision making that is involved, and you'll see. I'm on Instagram. I'm an instant Instagrammer. But you know what? I'm posting stuff that is really irrelevant to anybody's life. And, he's a rather than being a postgraduate or a PhD, or what you call a graduate, he's rather a lifestyle influencer. And it pays nothing to be on Instagram if you have a degree to work toward. It just distracts you from your central goals. I think, also you need to understand what it is that makes you procrastinate. Is it the fear of the big task? Is it the topic that you are uncomfortable with? Is it that you have too little information around it? But all of those things are things that you have control over, right? So the girl saying, I'm not a procrastinator, I'm just extremely productive at unimportant things. So you'd find every reason. So when I used to do my doing my PhD, and I came to a part of my PhD where my experiments were not working, nothing worked. It was just horrible. 90% of the time, nothing worked during that period. All my results were all over the place, and then I had to troubleshoot again. And so I stopped everything. And then I took a step out, and then I thought to myself, what can I do to better my situation, right? I know I'm procrastinating in a way by not tackling it head on, but what can I do to better my situation so that I'm better informed? So I went through a troubleshooting kind of schedule, and one thing at a time, like how they teach you in science, one thing at a time accomplished, and you rule out that problem one at a time, and it actually works at the end. So the time that I would have spent like avoiding my mistakes or avoiding troubleshooting was actually spent trying to solve my problem. I had to get over that instant fear of, oh my God, I'm not going to accomplish my PhD goals. What am I going to do? Nothing is working. But when I took a step back, I went on the internet, I researched it, I watched videos, I looked up people's problems, priorly published problems. I found that everybody else was in the same boat, and that was helpful to me. So having a group of friends is wonderful. And having a group of friends that you are accountable to is also wonderful, because you keep each other in check. Have you done X? Have you done Y? And see, there's a lot of commonality, or maybe doing different projects. But there's some areas that are very common for troubleshooting, some areas that are very common for all your collective fears, where you can just talk about it and bounce ideas back and forth. And that's your break. That's your break. That's your time when you're having some, feedback, you're feeling okay about yourself, and you're basically gaining balance again. And I think that's where we need to forgive ourselves. We're all human. We make mistakes. So
could I just add that, you noted a list of 12 mistakes that we make. And one that I would add is the one that you've just mentioned, not having people around you who can hold you accountable for what you should be doing. I mean, it's good to have friends or colleagues who can still keep you in check.
Absolutely. And they could be people in senior and junior positions. You can have somebody in their first year of their PhD, and you can have people in their third year or finished or a postdoc who's also in a similar position, who's also data-driven, who's also results-driven, has to get their papers out, etc. So, you are the person you're with in terms of company. So the company that you keep is also key to your productivity. And if you can see yourself as this person also actively contributing to them, the best way to become somebody learned is actually to teach somebody else. So if you can teach somebody else something, you also become very learned in that area. And by helping somebody else through something, you yourself feel accomplished. And that in itself is huge. I mean, Lenine will tell you she's training postgraduates, and she's teaching people soft skills, how to be better researchers. She's trying to manage people and make them more effective in the research field. She's trying to capacity develop. All of those things are feel-good things that she's doing. And she'll carry on doing it because it feeds into something that she's passionate about, right? And she's passionate about her research. So all of those things make her effective, and people are gravitating toward her because of that. So she's become an effective teacher because she's an effective learner. So the same can apply to you within a group of people. You form that peer group and you take ownership. All of you take ownership. And each week you can come together for 30 minutes and discuss something that's bugging you in the lab, or how do you handle a paper? How do you write up a paper? What's the best way to read an abstract, you know? All right, so why do we procrastinate? Tasks are unpleasant. I know it's too much all at once. Oh, it's boring. It's boring because you have fear for it, right? It's your project. You can't say, oh, my project is boring to your supervisor and say, it's so boring, I can't handle it. The supervisor will say, please deregister. That's not an excuse, right? You're in science for a reason, okay? Or medicine or whatever. You can't say the project that you've given me is boring. You have to invest yourself in it. So I think there's a nice video that you can look up, the science of procrastination, but I also have a really fun video just now, so that you can look it up and have a look at the benefits of tackling procrastination head on. So procrastination sign number 34. When you find yourself revising the outline of your outline, that is not on, okay? And you need to be accountable to somebody for doing that. Right, next slide. Everybody says, oh gosh, how are you able to be so effective with your time? Because I think we are effective at making decisions. You can ask Lenine. With her, if she says, no, I can't do something, it's decisive. It's no, maybe tomorrow or maybe the next day. And I've learned a lot from her, to say no in order not to displease or cause disruption for the other person, but I have to look at what am I going to be able to manage within a time that is done properly. So you don't want to do a rubbish job of anything by taking on too many tasks. So you choose, like choosing your battles with people, you choose the tasks that you take on that bring you closer to your goal, but you are going to be able to accomplish and do it well. So that's the difference. Okay, saying no is not a sign of weakness. It doesn't mean that you don't know about the stuff. It just means that you have other competing priorities. So this is the video I would like for you all to watch. It's really good. I love it because it reminds me of me a lot of the time. So watch. Yeah.
So in college, I was a government major, which means I had to write a lot of papers. Now, when a normal student writes a paper, they might spread the work out a little like this. So, you get started maybe a little slowly, but you get enough done in the first week that with some heavier days later on, everything gets done and things stay civil. And I would want to do that like that. That would be the plan. I would have it all ready to go, but then actually the paper would come along, and then I would kind of do this. And that would happen every single paper. But then came my 90-page senior thesis, paper you're supposed to spend a year on. I knew for a paper like that, my normal workflow was not an option. It was way too big a project. So I planned things out, and I decided I kind of had to go something like this. This is how the year would go. So I'd start off light, and I'd bump it up in the middle months. And then at the end, I would kick it up into high gear. It's like a little staircase. How hard can it be to just walk up the stairs? No big deal, right? But then funniest thing happened. Those first few months, they came and went, and I couldn't quite do stuff. So we had an awesome new revised plan. And then those middle months actually went by, and I didn't really write words. And so we were here. And then 2 months turned into 1 month, turned into 2 weeks. And one day I woke up with 3 days until the deadline, still not having written a word. And so I did the only thing I could. I wrote 90 pages over 72 hours, pulling not one, but 2 all-nighters. Humans are not supposed to pull 2 all-nighters. Sprinted across campus, dove in slow motion, and got it in just at the deadline. I thought that was the end of everything. But a week later, I get a call. And it's the school. And they say, is this Tim Urban? And I say, yeah. And they say, we need to talk about your thesis. I say, okay. And they say, it's the best one we've ever seen. That did not happen. It was a very, very bad thesis. I just wanted to enjoy that one moment when all of you thought, this guy is amazing. No, it was very, very bad. Anyway, today I'm a writer, blogger guy. I write the blog Wait, But Why? And a couple of years ago, I decided to write about procrastination. My behavior has always perplexed the non-procrastinators around me, and I wanted to explain to the non-procrastinators of the world what goes on in the heads of procrastinators and why we are the way we are. Now, I had a hypothesis that the brains of procrastinators were actually different than the brains of other people. And to test this, I found an MRI lab that actually let me scan both my brain and the brain of a proven non-procrastinator. And so I could compare them. And I actually brought them here to show you today. And I want you to take a look carefully to see if you can notice a difference. And I know that if you're not a trained brain expert, it's not that obvious, but just take a look, okay? So here's the brain of a non-procrastinator. Now, here's my brain. There is a difference. Both brains have a rational decision maker in them, but the procrastinator's brain also has an instant gratification monkey. Now, what does this mean for the procrastinator? Well, it means everything's fine until this happens. So the rational decision maker will make the rational decision to do something productive, but the monkey doesn't like that plan. So he actually takes the wheel and he says, actually, let's read the entire Wikipedia page of the Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding scandal, because I just remembered that happened. Then we're going to go over to the fridge. We're going to see if there's anything new in there since 10 minutes ago. After that, we're going to go on a YouTube spiral that starts with videos of Richard Feynman talking about magnets and ends much, much later with us watching interviews with Justin Bieber's mom. All of that's going to take a while, so we're not going to really have room on the schedule for any work today. Sorry. Now, what is going on here? The instant gratification monkey does not seem like a guy you want behind the wheel. He lives entirely in the present moment. He has no memory of the past, no knowledge of the future, and he only cares about 2 things, easy and fun. Now, in the animal world, that works fine. If you're a dog and you spend your whole life doing nothing other than easy and fun things, you're a huge success. And to the monkey, humans are just another animal species. He has to keep well slept, well fed, and propagating into the next generation, which in tribal times might have worked okay. But if you haven't noticed, now we're not in tribal times. We're in an advanced civilization, and the monkey does not know what that is, which is why we have another guy in our brain, the rational decision maker, who gives us the ability to do things no other animal can do. We can visualize the future. We can see the big picture. We can make long-term plans. And he wants to take all of that into account. And he wants to just have us do whatever makes sense to be doing right now. Now, sometimes it makes sense to be doing things that are easy and fun, like when you're having dinner or going to bed or enjoying well-earned leisure time. That's why there's an overlap. Sometimes they agree. But other times, it makes much more sense to be doing things that are harder and less pleasant for the sake of the big picture. And that's when we have a conflict. And for the procrastinator, that conflict tends to end a certain way every time, leaving him spending a lot of time in this orange zone, an easy and fun place that's entirely out of the make sense circle. I call it the dark playground. Now, the dark playground is a place that all of you procrastinators out there know very well. It's where leisure activities happen at times when leisure activities are not supposed to be happening. The fun you have in the dark playground isn't actually fun because it's completely unearned and the air is filled with guilt, dread, anxiety, self-hatred, all those good procrastinator feelings. And the question is, in this situation with the monkey behind the wheel, how does the procrastinator ever get himself over here to this blue zone, a less pleasant place, but where really important things happen? Well, turns out that the procrastinator has a guardian angel, someone who's always looking down on him and watching over him in his darkest moments, someone called the panic monster. Now, the panic monster is dormant most of the time, but he suddenly wakes up anytime a deadline gets too close or there's danger of public embarrassment, a career disaster, or some other scary consequence. And importantly, he's the only thing that the monkey is terrified of. Now, he became very relevant in my life pretty recently because the people of TED reached out to me about 6 months ago and invited me to do a TED Talk. Now, of course, I said yes. It's always been a dream of mine to have done a TED Talk in the past. But in the middle of all this excitement, the rational decision maker seemed to have something else in his mind. He was saying, "We clear on what we just accepted? Do we get what's going to be now happening one day in the future? We need to sit down and work on this right now." And the monkey said, "Totally agree, but also let's just open Google Earth and let's zoom into the bottom of India, like 200 feet above the ground, and we're going to scroll up for 2.5 hours till we get to the top of the country so we can get a better feel for India." So that's what we did that day. As 6 months turned into 4, and then 2, and then 1, the people of TED decided to release the speakers. And I opened up the website, and there was my face staring right back at me, and guess who woke up? So the panic monster starts losing his mind, and a few seconds later, the whole system's in mayhem. And the monkey, who, remember, he's terrified of the panic monster, boom, he's up the tree. And finally, the rational decision maker can take the wheel and I can start working on the talk. Now, the panic monster explains all kinds of pretty insane procrastinating behavior, like how someone like me could spend 2 weeks unable to start the opening sentence of a paper and then miraculously find the unbelievable work ethic to stay up all night and write 8 pages. And this entire situation with the 3 characters, this is the procrastinator's system. It's not pretty, but in the end, it works. And this is what I decided to write about on the blog just a couple of years ago. Now, when I did, I was amazed by the response. Literally thousands of emails came in from all different kinds of people from all over the world doing all different kinds of things. These were people who were nurses and bankers and painters and engineers and lots of PhD students. And they were all writing, saying the same thing. I have this problem too. But what struck me was the contrast between the light tone of the post and the heaviness of these emails. These people were writing with intense frustration about what procrastination had done to their lives, about what this monkey had done to them. And I thought about this and I said, if the procrastinator system works, then what's going on? Why are all these people in such a dark place? Well, turns out that there's 2 kinds of procrastination. Everything I've talked about today, the examples I've given, they all have deadlines. And when there's deadlines, the effects of procrastination are contained to the short term because the panic monster gets involved. But there's a second kind of procrastination that happens in situations when there is no deadline. So if you want to have a career where you want to be a self-starter, something in the arts, something entrepreneurial, there's no deadlines on those things at first because nothing's happening at first, not until you've gone out and done the hard work to get some momentum, to get things going. There's also all kinds of important things outside of your career that don't involve any deadlines, like seeing your family or exercising and taking care of your health, working on your relationship or getting out of a relationship that isn't working. Now, if procrastinator's only mechanism of doing these hard things is the panic monster, that's a problem, because in all of these non-deadline situations, the panic monster doesn't show up. He has nothing to wake up for. So the effects of procrastination, they're not contained. They just extend outward forever. And it's this long-term kind of procrastination that's much less visible and much less talked about than the funnier short-term deadline-based kind. It's usually suffered quietly and privately. And it can be the source of a huge amount of long-term unhappiness and regrets. And I thought, that's why these people are emailing, and that's why they're in such a bad place. It's not that they're cramming for some project. It's that long-term procrastination has made them feel like a spectator at times in their own lives. The frustration was not that they couldn't achieve their dreams, it's that they weren't even able to start chasing them. So I read these emails and I had a little bit of an epiphany that I don't think non-procrastinators exist. That's right. I think all of you are procrastinators. Now, you might not all be a mess, like some of us. And some of you may have a healthy relationship with deadlines. But remember, the monkey's sneakiest trick is when the deadlines aren't there. Now, I want to show you one last thing. I call this a life calendar. That's one box for every week of a 90-year life. It's not that many boxes, especially since we've already used a bunch of those. So I think we need to all take a long, hard look at that calendar. And we need to think about what we're really procrastinating on, because everyone is procrastinating on something in life. We need to stay aware of the instant gratification monkey. That's a job for all of us. And because there's not that many boxes on there, it's a job that should probably start today. Well, maybe not today, but sometime soon. Thank you.
Okay, so back to reality. Oh, no. Sorry about that. Stop it. Sorry, guys. Right, so back to reality. So I think it's given you some perspective that all of us are procrastinators, but it's how you handle that little instant gratification monkey within you and control the monkey rather than the monkey controlling you. All of us are guilty of it. I am number one, and I am not going to say that I'm any different to anybody. It's just that I try to control it the best way that works for me. And what works for me may not necessarily work for everybody. So here's a list of some effective methods. So you've got a problem, tackle it, right? There's a salami technique. So salami technique means making it into slices that you can accomplish. So slice your goals or your tasks in such a way that you do the easier ones first, and then it gives you momentum, as I said. Take your 5-minute breaks. Breaks are important for refreshing. Breaks are important for gaining new perspective. And when your brain is relaxed, that's when you're at your most creative. So your strategy also, remember I said, work within a group of people with similar interests. Also work on things that are related. So if they're related, it leads you from one area to the other. And that way you're gaining confidence as you go along. So here it says, do the hardest bits first. And I disagree. I think do the easier bits first, which gives you confidence. And then you move on to do the harder bits, right? And when you're doing the harder bits, because you're getting used to handling the initial questions, handling the research questions, learning the language, doing the more difficult tasks become slightly easier. Set your goals, make commitments actually to yourself, but also tell your commitments to your colleagues. Like Lenine and I will tell each other stuff, and then I would think, I told Lenine I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I put it on email. So if I put it on email, I have to accomplish that goal. And that's what I do. As uncomfortable, sometimes I'm so resistant. I don't want to put that email down because it's going to nail me down for that time and that place. And I'm not sure if I want to commit to it. But then if you put it on email and somebody responds, it's there. It's like cast in stone. You can't change it. Okay. For you, for the person who's loyal to that diary and that task. So make your commitments that way, either by writing to somebody. It's like having a gym buddy, right? You don't like to go to gym alone. Well, girls generally don't like to go to gym alone. Guys are different. You all are a different species altogether. So if you make a commitment, Lenine and I used to go before COVID. And because she was going, I was going. And if I was going, she was going. So that buddy system really does give you momentum. Reward yourself for the achievement. Have a piece of cake, for crying out loud. Don't self-loathe and think, how many calories am I eating? Your brain needs to work. It uses sugar. It uses carbs. Use the sugar. Change your subjects regularly. So if you're doing a set task and you find that it's boring you a little bit, refocus. During your break, refocus, focus on something different, change your reality for a little bit, and then get back, right? So 3 strategies: the salami technique, making commitments, and rewarding yourself. So this involves slicing it up. I'm not going to go into it with great detail. So if you have like big tasks, you can't accomplish it. Like in science, some of the time you have your objectives, your aim, your big aim, and then you have your objectives and your secondary objectives. Your secondary objectives obviously depend on your primary objectives, but you have to tackle your primary objectives first, right? You have to work through it, generate some data, and then do the secondary analysis on data that you've generated. So that's what it is. It's actually salami slicing. And that's why your supervisor and your mentors always tell you to break your goals down, right? So this is important for tackling any project. So how do you think? How do you do this? You analyze the question, the hypothesis, if there's existing data. Then you brainstorm your response. Is the data supportive of my hypothesis? Is my hypothesis correct? From here, then you can make an outline of your answer. Then you write it like for your introduction of your thesis. What is the big problem? HIV, for example. What is being done to solve HIV? And your subsequent paragraphs involve that. And then your final sentence is, how do you go about doing what you did? And what are the basic answers that you've derived from your research, right? I make it sound easier. It's easier said than done, but it's also practice. And reading papers will help you do that. Lastly, you can review and edit your answers. Nothing is cast in stone. Do a rough edit. Do a rough plan. Make that mind map for yourself so that you have something to start with. You know, your mind map is so important because they call it a mind palace, I think, because there you're actually formulating everything that needs to be done. Even if it's wrong, some aspects of it are wrong and it doesn't flow properly, you will be able to figure it out once you get started with your work. So what was initially a very large task that looked like a huge elephant that you couldn't tackle is suddenly broken down into bite-sized pieces that you can take on and solve one at a time. So that's a way of getting your mind around something that you really think is unimaginable. It's always impossible until it's done, right? That's Nike's slogan. So I always use that slogan. So research has found that students work best when they're given tight deadlines, right? I know I also work best when given tight deadlines. They achieve higher grades and they experience less stress. Why? Because your time is contracted. You only have time to be stressed for that time. Your gratification monkey comes in, but that monster comes in to eradicate the gratification monkey. So how many of you find that y'all are far more productive when y'all have competing interests? I find that I am far more productive when I have competing interests, because that's when I'm doing time management at my best, right? Oh, don't get me wrong, the panic monster, the instant gratification monkey, all of them are working. One is working for me and one is working against me. But somehow or the other, you have to pull through. So if you are working on a large piece, give yourself deadlines. Your introduction for your thesis, your literature review, your results, or your materials and methods is a wonderful place to start, especially if you finished your experiments. Everything has seemed to work in terms of experiments, and then you go on to tackle your data analysis. So materials and methods are a fabulous way to start your thesis life. And then that way it'll keep you on track, that you've covered all of your bases, right? And your materials for your subject. Reward yourself, have the cake, have the quick break. Don't self-loathe and think, oh my God, if I take a break, I'm going to be disconnecting from my central goal. No, take a break. You earned it, right? And also have a predetermined reward for yourself. Have a manicure, a pedicure. Guys, you can go out shooting ducks if you want. I'm not a proponent of hunting by any chance. You can shoot, what do you call it, those rubber duckies at the, is the fun fair still around, Lenny?
No one do any shooting. I'm just gonna we can go back and veto that.
No, what I'm saying is take a break and do something that you feel rewarded with, right? Whether it's a massage, whether you're going out to play a sport, indoor soccer, whatever it is, whatever makes you feel happy, right? And that predetermined reward, make sure you've earned it, because you yourself will know if you've earned that predetermined reward. You don't lie to yourself. Do I earn it? Did I earn it? If you didn't, then get back to do the work and put forward your reward for another time. So what's the most effective time management principles? So there's a method called the Eisenhower method. I'm going to go through it. This is what you have to do as an antidote to procrastination, right? Determine what is urgent. Don't overcommit. Have a plan for your time. Allow time for the unexpected. So one of the things is, if you have a flat tire, if you have, like me the other day, a flat tire, I had to accept it. I had to move on. I had to solve my problem. I had no choice, right? Then I had to realign my calendar and reassign and do an Eisenhower method. And I'm going to teach you that. Allow time for the unexpected. Handle things once. That's what I said. Don't overcommit yourself. Handle things once so that when you do it, you're doing it properly and you're giving it your all. Create realistic deadlines. Set goals for yourself and your time. Develop routines. I can't tell you how important a routine is. Getting up at the same time every day and making sure that you have something on your to-do list that is the most important for you to accomplish for that day. Focus on one thing at a time. Eliminate or minimize distractions. Outsource tasks or delegate. And leave time for fun and play. Hi, Elliot, you have your hand up. Len, can you unmute him?
Elliot?
Yes, in fact, I raised my hand when we were told to raise our hands.
I'm so sorry. How can we help?
Well, I think you can go ahead and then I will make my comments later.
Fantastic, thank you. So there's an Eisenhower decision method that you can use. And it's a triaging method. What you do is you decide what is urgent, what is important, versus what is not urgent and what is not important. Everything on that dark gray block that doesn't belong in your life will go into that dark gray box. It's not urgent, it's not important. It doesn't take you closer to your goal. Take it away from you. What is not urgent but important, you will decide a time on the blue block to schedule it in. What is urgent and important, you will do immediately. What is not important but urgent, have a plan B. Where is your contingency plan? I can't satisfy this for now, but can I make a plan to help somebody or get the task done with somebody else? There's always people to help you. Okay, you're not alone. What tools do we have? To-do lists. I have a manual diary. I have Post-it notes. I have an electronic calendar. I have a phone app that reminds me of even to put my eye mask on, which I don't obviously do a lot of the time. I have Zoom call and team call reminders. And I also have what we call a peer support group, right? Within our circle, between myself, Len, and Sanai, we bounce off ideas all of the time. We ask each other to do each other favors. So that's our support group that keeps us going. If I can't do something, I have Lenine as a backup or Sanai. And we each work towards the common goal of training, and we help each other that way. So your plan B has to work for you. Or if you don't have a plan B, find a plan C. There is somebody that would help you. So time management tips: keep your time in check, take your breaks. You know, repetition is the mother of learning, right? Plan in advance, set correct goals, organize your tasks, eliminate distractions, avoid multitasking while you are trying to accomplish your set goal for the day. Meditate and exercise. Yes, it's so important to breathe. Breathing is the one thing that helps calm you down and helps you to refocus. Prioritize your tasks using the Eisenhower method and delegate when absolutely necessary to get you to the goal that you need to accomplish. And with that, I will end. There is a video at the end, which we will not watch, but I will send a link for Lenine to post.
In the interest of time, you say.
Oh yeah, we are almost at the top of the hour. Okay. Anyway, that was well timed.
Very good, very good. So we do have a few minutes for questions. I know Elliot is dying to post the comment. In the meantime, in the chat box, I have actually personal question about who's using digital time management or project management software, who's using it effectively and works well for you. I've had issues depending on those, and I noticed that it was listed in your mistake section about depending heavily on these things. So I just wondered about who's actually managed to work well with this. And if anybody would like to pop anything else in the chat box about what tips you use, what's worked effectively for you, by all means, put it in there. We do have a few minutes for discussion. Elliot, would you like to comment? I see you've unmuted now.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for the opportunity. When it comes to the forming a group, I don't know how to emphasize that. It worked very well for me while I was doing my undergrad. The reason why it is so important is that it provides a lot of motivation when you are working with your colleagues. I was doing my undergrad, my BA. I had those friends, and we even approached the senior students for some other issues that we wanted clarifications on. It was working very well. So everything has been said about the group, but I just wanted to emphasize the importance of the group. And when I was doing my honors degree, I started to miss this group. I even tried to influence some of my friends that even if we are not doing the same causes, but coming together would, give us a lot of strength, to motivate one another, and going forward. But fortunately, when I was doing my honors in psychology, I also had another group And then, it was working very, very well, in terms of motivation and commitment. And then in terms of having many other tasks besides your studies, what I used to tell myself, because when you are studying and working and having other commitments, you sort of like, you don't have enough time, time becomes more limited. But I said to myself, as long as the other tasks are not causing problems for me, but they are adding value to my life, so I was able to also attend to them, give them time, but focusing mainly on my studies. And when I was doing my honors, my master's, research master's, I had a professor who was very strict. My supervisor was very strict, Professor Liana Ace. I remember when I had to submit work, I had finished writing that piece of work, but I had to travel from Maritzburg to Durban using public transport. And I tried to phone her and inform her that, asking for an extension to bring it the following day. And then she responded by saying she said she did not think that if the way I was, trying to postpone, she said they might not take me the following year as a student. She was so strict. I felt threatened, and then I said, no, Prof, I will bring it right now. And then I had to make means of submitting that work. So, but what I can say is that working under deadlines is very important for the task to happen. And I would suggest that if supervisors, become a little bit stricter on deadlines, although that may not sound nice to students, but it can help. I felt, that it was actually helping me to actually, keep the deadlines. And then she also taught me to keep a diary. And then because I would arrange everything that I would put on my diary, everything that I would do the following day, prioritize everything. And then I found my life much more easier. And then I found my life doing, focusing on my work, and it was very, very nice.
Well done, Elliot.
Yeah.
Thanks for all these tips. You've added a few extra ones here for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another thing is also to actually try and make sure and find out where your study behavior occurs. Whether you're in the library, whether you're alone at home, in your office, or that is very important. If you feel that when you are in the library or when you are at rest, your friends come and you can't really study, find where your study behavior occurs and then stick to that. Because it's also very important to monitor yourself and to actually know where your studies happens well. Yeah,
true.
thanks.
I think that resonates well with what Desh was saying about finding time for where you are most productive. So it's about quality and not how long you are working in there. Desh, would you have any last comments? I know we've done a little bit over.
No, I think, Elliot, I think you're an example of what happens, a successful example of what happens when you have that peer support, and you also have a supervisor that you are accountable to, not a supervisor that's alien and not being your panic monster. I think supervisors that are panic monsters actually care about your outcome. And if you get scolded by a supervisor, it's not because they don't care, it's because they actually do care, about your future. So if a supervisor leaves you to your own devices and says, okay, do as you wish, and doesn't consolidate or even check on your deadlines and your progress, remember, it is your PhD, it is your master's. That means that you have to work doubly hard and be self-effacing about what it is that you are going to be accomplishing at the end of the day. So to have a strict supervisor is not, I've had 2 strict supervisors in my life, and I can tell you, it knocked me into shape. It made me reconcile all of my bad habits, which I still have, I must say. The panic monster and the monkey is around all of the time in all of us. We cannot deny their existence. But I think when you have somebody external that you're also accountable to, whether it's your peer support group, your supervisor, your mentor, that also helps keep you in check. And it's an important part of your development. And it's also an important part of role playing. And,
And I mean, you're making a wonderful point about this, that time management very often does not happen in a vacuum. Your plans are coinciding with someone else's plans, or it depends on somebody else's plans. And another key issue that all of us would need to develop is effective communication, learning how to interact and communicate what you need in order to achieve your goals effectively. Lucky for everybody, this is a session that is going to be tabled for the 2nd semester, so we will be covering that. I know that we've gone over a little bit, so I'm just going to end off here by thanking Desh, Prof. Archery, very much for all these very, very useful tips about how to manage our time effectively. I'm sure, I'm sorry, many people have sent me the direct messages thanking you for participating today. The chat box is still open if you'd like to add anything more in there. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being with us, and the rest of the community. We'll see you in the next semester when we start in the beginning of August. Take care, everybody. We'll
thank
see
you so
soon.
much for the opportunity, guys, and thank you for your time.
You're
for carving out time
welcome
to be with me. Thank you.
See, we've learned from you already.
It's been an honor.
Take care, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.